My boyfriend's female best friend openly hates me. I've reached the point where it's either her or me. And his attitude has left me shocked. Looking back on it now, it feels like I was living someone else's life for a while. A life where my happiness was measured by someone else's standards. Where I allowed myself to be diminished by a situation I knew deep down wasn't right. But it wasn't always like that. At the start of my relationship with Tom, everything felt perfect, like we were two halves that had found each other. He was charming, intelligent, and attentive. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was something that grew steadily over time, becoming the foundation of what I thought would be a lasting partnership. I remember when he first mentioned Nell. He spoke about her casually, as if she were just another friend, someone who had been in his life for years. I didn't think much of it at the time. I had friends who had been in my life for ages. Too, friends who had seen me through ups and downs long before Tom was part of the picture. So I assumed it was the same for him and Nell. But as time went on, her presence in our relationship started to feel different. It was more than just friendship. It was an influence. A constant shadow lingering in the background of every interaction. Every decision we made. I should have trusted my instincts when things first started to feel off. There were little signs at first. The way Nell would cut me off mid-sentence when Tom and I were together. How she'd openly mock my opinions. Making snide remarks that always left me feeling small. I brushed it off as awkwardness or jealousy on my part. Convincing myself that I was overthinking it. That Tom's close friendship with Nell was just something I had to accept. After all, everyone has friends, right? But it wasn't just her comments or her constant presence that bothered me. It was Tom's complete indifference to it all. When Nell mocked me or made me feel less than, Tom never stood up for me. He never said anything. He'd either laugh it off or act like he didn't hear it. I kept waiting for him to realize what was happening. For him to notice the growing tension between me and his best friend. But he never did. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't care. That realization was the most painful part. It wasn't just that Nell disliked me, it was that Tom didn't seem to care that I was being hurt. I felt like I was fighting a battle alone. A battle for my place in my own relationship. Every time I tried to bring it up, he would dismiss it, brush it off as jealousy or insecurity. He'd say things like, "Nell doesn't mean anything by it," or, "You're reading too much into it." And because I loved him, I believed him. I wanted so badly to believe that I was wrong. That Nell didn't hate me. That Tom did care about my feelings. But as the months went on, it became harder and harder to ignore. Every interaction with Nell felt like a test I was failing. She would undermine me, make sarcastic comments about my appearance, my job, even my relationship with Tom. And Tom would sit there, completely unfazed. I started to feel like the third wheel in my own relationship. Like I was an outsider looking in on a dynamic that I didn't fully understand. I tried to talk to Tom about it. More than once. I'd sit him down and explain how I felt. How Nell's behavior made me uncomfortable. How it hurt that he never stood up for me. But every time, the conversation would end the same way. He'd get defensive, accuse me of being jealous, and insist that he was allowed to have female friends. He never acknowledged the real issue, that I was feeling disrespected and unsupported. It was like he couldn't, or wouldn't, see what was right in front of him. It all came to a head a few days ago. After months of feeling like I was on the verge of breaking, I finally reached my limit. I had spent too many nights lying awake, replaying every snide comment, every time Tom had chosen not to defend me. I had spent too many days doubting myself, wondering if I was the problem, if I was overreacting. But I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. I had been trying so hard to hold on to something that wasn't there. To convince myself that things would get better. But they hadn't. And they weren't going to. So, I made a decision. I sat Tom down and told him everything. I told him how I felt like a stranger in my own relationship. How Nell's behavior was eroding my self-esteem. And how his indifference was making it impossible for me to stay. I expected him to react with some kind of understanding. Maybe even some regret. But instead, he just sat there, silent for what felt like an eternity. Before asking, "So, you're jealous of Nell?" It was like a punch to the gut. After everything I had said. After pouring my heart out, he still didn't get it. He still didn't understand. And in that moment, I realized that he never would. No matter how much I tried to explain. No matter how many times I asked for his support. He wasn't capable of giving me what I needed. He wasn't willing to see things from my perspective. And that was the moment I knew I had to leave. I packed my things while Tom sat there, playing a video game as if nothing had happened. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't say anything. He just let me walk out of his life without a second thought. It hurt, but at the same time, it was liberating. I had been carrying the weight of this relationship for so long. Trying to make it work. Trying to convince myself that things would change. But now, that weight was gone, and I felt lighter. I went straight to my best friend's place. She had been my rock throughout all of this. Always listening, always understanding. When I arrived at her doorstep, I broke down in tears. It wasn't just the end of the relationship that hit me. It was the realization that I had been holding on to something that wasn't good for me. My friend hugged me, held me as I cried, and told me I had made the right decision. And for the first time in months, I felt like I had. We spent the night eating pizza, drinking wine, and watching movies. It felt like a small slice of normalcy. Like a reminder that life could be simple and joyful again. I didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore. I didn't have to worry about whether or not I was good enough for Tom or if Nell would ever stop undermining me. I could just be myself. Free from the constant pressure of trying to fit into a space where I wasn't welcome. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I could move on. Put Tom and Nell behind me. And start fresh. But the next morning, I woke up to a barrage of messages from an unknown number. It was Nell. I hadn't expected her to reach out. But there it was. Walls of text. Full of defensiveness and accusations. She insisted that she had never bullied me. That I was imagining things. And that I had ruined my own relationship by being jealous. She even denied that she had ever had any romantic interest in Tom. Despite all the signs to the contrary. Reading her messages, I felt a familiar wave of anger rise up in me. But this time, I didn't respond. I didn't give her the satisfaction of getting under my skin. I knew what she was trying to do. She wanted to provoke me. To make me doubt myself again. But I wasn't going to let her. I had already walked away from that toxic situation. And I wasn't going to look back. In the days that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I spent more time with my family. Reconnecting with the people who truly cared about me. I threw myself into work. And to my surprise, I was promoted shortly after ending things with Tom. It felt like the universe was giving me a little nudge. Reminding me that I was on the right path. My ex never tried to contact me. And I was glad. I didn't want to rehash the past or give him another chance to make me feel small. As for Nell, I'm sure she's still somewhere in Tom's life. Playing the role she always did. But that's no longer my concern. They can have each other. I'm done with that chapter. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything, I feel a sense of peace. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not sad. I'm just free. I made the right choice. And I'm excited for what's next. I have a place to call home. New opportunities on the horizon. And a renewed sense of self-worth. And for the first time in a long time, I'm truly happy. The weight has been lifted. And I'm ready to move forward. As the days turned into weeks, the sense of peace I felt continued to grow. It wasn't immediate, but gradually, the pain and frustration I had carried for so long faded into the background. I stopped thinking about Tom and Nell. Stopped replaying their actions in my head. What had once felt like an unbearable burden now seemed like a distant chapter of my life, one that had ended. And I was grateful it had. My best friend and I found an apartment together. And moving into a new space felt like a fresh start. There were no memories of Tom or Nell there. No remnants of the old life I had struggled so hard to maintain. It was just me, my best friend, and the future. The apartment was cozy, filled with light and laughter. And it felt like home in a way that nothing had in years. We spent our evenings decorating, painting walls, and planning for the future. Every decision I made, whether it was which furniture to buy or which color to paint the living room, felt like another step toward reclaiming myself. At work, things were better than ever. My promotion opened up new opportunities for growth. and I threw myself into the challenges that came with it. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly thriving. I wasn't distracted by the drama of my old relationship. I wasn't constantly worrying about whether I was good enough. I knew I was capable, strong, and deserving of everything that was coming my way. My family, too, had been a source of unwavering support throughout it all. They had rallied around me after the breakup, taking me out for meals, sending me encouraging messages, and just reminding me that I wasn't alone. I leaned into those relationships more than I ever had before. My bond with my parents deepened, and I spent more time with them, realizing how much I had neglected those relationships while trying to fix things with Tom. And then there was my newfound sense of self. The breakup had forced me to confront so many things about myself, my boundaries, my self-worth, and what I truly wanted in life. I realized that, for too long, I had settled for less than I deserved. I had allowed myself to be diminished, to be made small, in order to fit into a relationship that wasn't right for me. But now, I knew better. I knew that I deserved love, respect, and partnership that didn't come with conditions or compromises that hurt me. There were still moments when I thought about what could have been. Sometimes, late at night, I would wonder if Tom ever truly understood what he had lost. Or if Nell had realized the impact of her behavior. But those thoughts were fleeting, passing like clouds on a sunny day. They no longer held power over me. I had moved on, and I had moved up. As I sit here now, in the apartment that I've made my own, I feel proud of the journey I've taken. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I doubted myself. But in the end, I found my way back to who I truly am. Stronger, more confident, and more self-assured than I ever thought possible. There's a certain beauty in letting go. In releasing the things that no longer serve you, you create space for what truly matters. And that's exactly what I've done. I've let go of the past. And in doing so, I've embraced a future that is full of possibility, joy, and fulfillment. I'm excited for what's to come. For the adventures I'll take, the people I'll meet, and the life I'll continue to build on my own terms. I'm no longer weighed down by what was. I'm uplifted by what's ahead. And for the first time in a long time, I feel truly free.